The engineer who built his future with English. The story of Speaking English Hub Part 1. The turning point. In the heart of Hanoi, under the blazing sun, a young engineer stands on a busy construction site. His name is Thinh, 29 years old. A civil engineer, the kind of man who builds bridges, towers and cities from the ground up. For years, he's been known among his colleagues as hardworking, reliable, precise, and the man who never misses a measurement, never leaves a drawing unchecked. But behind his calm eyes there's a secret battle. A battle not with concrete or steel, but with words a dream too far away. Every morning, Thinh walks past the side office where the foreign consultants gather, Korean, Singaporean, British engineers, laughing, debating, and making decisions in English. He greets them politely with a smile, but he says nothing more, because inside he's afraid. Afraid of mispronouncing, afraid of freezing mid-sentence, afraid of looking foolish in front of people he respects. He knows the drawings better than anyone in that room, but he can't explain them in English. He understands the numbers, the plans, the cost breakdowns, yet when a client turns to him and says, "Thinh, could you explain this part again, please?" His mind goes blank. He opens his mouth, but the words disappear. They're there, somewhere, in Vietnamese, in his thoughts, but they can't come out in English, and so he simply nods, smiles, and lets someone else answer. That day, walking home after work, he remembers thinking, "I'm not stupid, I'm just silent." The missed chance one afternoon, his company had an important meeting with a potential client, a foreign investor for a massive new project. The meeting was held in English. Thinh was supposed to present the cost plan for the mechanical and structural packages, his strongest area. He had spent nights preparing every detail, every number, but when the meeting started, his manager said, "Thinh, please support, but let me explain in English." He sat quietly through the entire discussion, watching someone else speak for him, explaining his own work, his own ideas, in a language he couldn't yet master. The client nodded with interest. Decisions were made and the meeting ended. Everyone stood up, shook hands, and left. But Thinh stayed behind, staring at the empty conference room. The whiteboard still had his handwriting on it, and in that silent room he whispered to himself, "Next time, I'll speak for myself." He didn't know it then, but that moment was the beginning of everything. The hidden frustration for months, Thinh kept trying. He downloaded English apps, watched YouTube videos, bought grammar books, but nothing stuck. He studied vocabulary lists at night after work, writing down words like construction, foundation, reinforcement, tensile strength. But when he tried to use them in conversation, they disappeared like smoke. It was frustrating. He could design a high-rise building, calculate its load capacity, estimate its cost, yet he couldn't even describe it to a client in English without stuttering. Every failure chipped away at his confidence. Every mistake made him quieter. At family dinners, when his relatives asked, "When will you work for a foreign company, Thinh? You're smart, you can do it." He just smiled and said, "Maybe next year." But inside he wondered if that next year would ever come. The night of realization, one evening after a long day at the site, Thinh sat alone in his rented room. The city outside was alive, motorbikes rushing, street vendors calling, but inside, it was silent except for the hum of his old laptop. He was watching a video titled "How I Learned English in 6 Months. It was from a Brazilian guy named Jake. The man spoke confidently, passionately, and Thinh felt something stirring inside. The story was simple. Jake had failed an interview because he couldn't speak English. Then he changed his life, and for Thinh it was like watching a mirror. Different country, same struggle. He closed his laptop slowly and stared at his reflection in the dark window. The question hit him hard. How long will I keep waiting? At that moment he made a decision. A decision that would change everything. He whispered to himself, "From today, English will not be my weakness. It will be my weapon." A plan is born the next morning. Thinh woke up earlier than usual, 5 a.m. He made himself a cup of strong Vietnamese coffee, opened his notebook, and wrote on the first page, "My 5-month mission is to speak English." Fluently and confidently, he drew 3 lines below it and wrote, "I will learn English for my career. I will learn English for my future. I will learn English for my channel. Speaking English Hub. Yes, at that moment he didn't even have a YouTube channel yet, only an idea. But he knew that someday, when he could speak confidently, he would use his story to help others like him. The first step then realized he didn't need fancy courses or expensive teachers. What he needed was discipline and a real-life system. He called it the engineer's method. It was simple, practical and powerful, just like how engineers solve problems. For the first 15 days, he didn't memorize any new words. He focused only on using what he already knew. He made a list called survival sentences, 50 simple sentences that he could use anywhere, at work, at a coffee shop, or online. Sentences like, "Can you repeat that, please? I'm learning English, I don't understand yet, but I'm trying. Could you send me the drawing file?" Every morning he stood in front of his mirror speaking them out loud, not once but 10 times each. At first his tongue felt heavy, his pronunciation awkward, but slowly the sentences became smoother, faster, more natural. He began to feel something he hadn't felt in years. Progress. The private classroom. During the day, at work, he had no one to practice with. So he created his own classroom, inside his mind. While checking rebar at the site, he would whisper to himself, "I'm checking the beam reinforcement." While taking measurements, the column is 3.5 meters high. While walking home, "I'm walking home from the construction site. I feel tired but proud." He didn't care if people thought he was talking to himself, that because he wasn't. He was talking to his future self, the version of Thinh who would one day speak fluently, confidently, and inspire thousands of learners worldwide. The small wins after 10 days, something magical happened. When his Korean manager asked him, "Thinh, can you prepare the mechanical drawing by tomorrow?" He replied instantly, "Yes, I'll finish it tonight and send it by email." No hesitation, no panic, just natural speech. It was a short sentence, but for Thinh it felt like climbing a mountain. He realized that fluency doesn't begin with perfection. It begins with one confident sentence, and once you say one, the next comes easier. A new morning habit. Every morning before heading to the site, Thinh spent 30 minutes listening to English podcasts, especially stories of people learning English. He didn't understand every word, but he kept listening. When he heard a phrase he liked, he paused, repeated it, and mimicked the voice exactly. Tone, rhythm, emotion. "I don't know what you're talking about." It was a beautiful day, so I decided to go for a walk. He repeated them 10 times each until his voice sounded natural. He called this the echo technique, because he was literally echoing the native speaker. Within 2 weeks, his pronunciation started to change. When he spoke, his colleagues noticed. "Hey Thinh, your English sounds different now." He smiled quietly, because they didn't know the truth. Every night after everyone slept, he was training like an athlete. The bridge between two worlds, the weeks passed. English became more than a language, it became a bridge. A bridge between the world he was born in and the world he wanted to reach. At the construction site, he no longer avoided English speakers. He greeted them, asked small questions, even joked sometimes. The fear didn't disappear overnight, but courage grew faster than fear. He began to notice something powerful. When he spoke, people listened. When he tried, people respected him. It wasn't about grammar. It was about connection. The vision expands by the end of the first month. Thinh was no longer learning English just for himself. He started thinking about others, the countless Vietnamese workers, engineers and students who faced the same barrier. He thought, if I can find a way to learn English that really works, I will share it with the world. And from that thought, a seed was planted, a seed that would grow into SpeakingEnglishHub, a place where learners could see that English wasn't just for foreigners or the rich, it was for everyone willing to try. Thinh wasn't a teacher. He wasn't a native speaker. He was something more powerful, a real learner who refused to give up. In a small rented room in Hanoi, with only a notebook, a cup of coffee, and an unbreakable will, a young civil engineer named Thinh began building something greater than any skyscraper. He was building his future. Thinh's journey is just beginning. From a silent engineer to a man building his voice in English, this is more than a story. It's a movement. If you believe that anyone from anywhere can change their life through English, then join us.